passion and pageantry of college football lives here. This is the Paul Finebaum Show, Hour 1 podcast.
This might be college football heaven.
Welcome in on this Wednesday. The meeting has ended in New Orleans, and we will have a live report throughout the afternoon on what happened today in the Big Easy between the Big Ten representatives and the SEC. The commissioners are about to talk. The 14-team proposal could alter college football forever. That's what Dan Wetzel said. We'll find out what he means by that in a moment. This is from Dellinger, who is stateside. Athletic directors have not talked. The commissioners are about to. What do we expect from Tony Petitti and Greg Sankey? Will the world turn on its axis, depending on what happens today in New Orleans? That's the question du jour. Good afternoon. Welcome in. Glad you're here. Your phone calls around the corner. But we mentioned Dan Wetzel, one of the most respected sports columnists in America. He has, like everyone, an opinion on what has been transpiring down in New Orleans. Dan, always great to talk to you. It's a pleasure. So tell us what you believe this is going to all mean down the road. Good afternoon.
Well, it looks like they're certainly beating the drum to expand the playoff. It's been 1 year. I would like to let it cook a little longer, see what we like and dislike, maybe a little bit longer than this. But they seem very determined to do something. My issue with the 14, my number one issue would be the automatic bids. Are we going to have 4 automatic bids in the SEC and the Big Ten, and then 2 in the ACC and the Big 12? To me, that has the potential to fundamentally alter the way the sport is played and competed for and all of that. We've never had multiple automatic bids in a league. And what is the impact of that? And I'm not sure the real reason of why we would do this. It feels like a solution in search of a problem. I thought the 12 is the right number. I thought the 12-team playoff was good. I thought there were some tweaks to be made. I didn't think we need to expand and then change the way the sport will be competed for, where non-conference doesn't matter. The idea you could finish really in the top potentially 6 in your league and have a play-in way through the conference, all the different things. It just seems like an awful lot when we don't really have a problem with the playoff.
And Dan, I want to mine that a little bit deeper, because there are a lot of opinion makers like yourself who are using words like shameful and outrageous. You've talked about changing things forever. Big words, but a little more tempered even than some of your seatmates in the press box. But what if you had to pick something that I mean, I know you don't like the AQs, but what kind of message is this sending to the rest of the world, and really what does it say about college athletics, especially college football right now?
Well, it's always the problem is there's nobody in charge, right? There's not one central authority in charge. It's competing factions trying to get what they think is the best deal for themselves. And I think that's unfortunate in a couple ways. One, I get the concept. It's like business. It's, hostile takeovers and, pushing for market share and all that. But college sports, and particularly college football, to me is a little bit of like a public trust, if you will. There's a lot to it for all of the fans that spend their entire life appreciating it. And it doesn't necessarily need to be cutthroat business of what's better for me could be worse for you and worse for overall. We saw things like, you have these commissioners come in, short-term guys. They're using it as a resume builder. They're trying to get out to get a different job, and you'll have a conference expand. Why? Well, because it's a good thing to get done on a resume, and then they're gone. Do they really look at the 50-year history of this? What's best for all of the fans and all of the different teams, and how much does that weigh into it? Not just, hey, I can get a little bit more of the piece of the pie here. I would like to see somebody overall in charge. That's just not going to happen. That's just not realistic. But what you don't see in the NFL is, the AFC fighting with the NFC South, the AFC East and the NFC South fighting with each other. So to me, I look at this and I say, okay, where's the problem? I'm all for change. I'm all for advancement. I'm definitely not the, old school, I wish nothing had ever changed about this sport. But show me a problem, and then I'll look for a solution. But if there's not a problem, and I just didn't think there's any serious problem with this college football playoff we just had, then why are we going with a solution? Would I like to see the seeding maybe change? Would I like to see the quarterfinals on campus? Would I like to see a tweak or two to the selection process? Sure. But that doesn't mean we automatically just sit there and go, all right, top 4 teams are in this league, and your league only gets 2, and things like that really have a way of causing a lot of divisions and alterations. I just think this is too big of a price to go rushing in on when there isn't a problem with college football. The sport is booming. Money is being made. Ratings are great. Fan interest is great. And we have a 1-year-old playoff, and we're already altering it because we can. And that's the part that I'm more cautious about. I wouldn't call it necessarily shameful, but I would say, man, let's pump the brakes on this. I just don't know why this is necessary.
Dan, you've answered the question to a degree by talking about the sport is booming, but we hear, some of it's anecdotal. There is, I think, depending on your age, the older you get, the older you are, there is a disconnect. The portal, the free agency, the mercenary aspects of some of these individuals concern people, and they worry if it's not going to build upon itself. Where are you on the immediate future of the sport, which does often seem more like we're watching daily trading on Wall Street as opposed to the good old play for the state U mentality?
Yeah. Day trading versus mutual fund or something, or the old corner bank's savings account. Look, I understand all of that. That's has nothing to do with this playoff. That's really the part that this playoff doesn't solve that. If anything, it'd be a response to the leveling of the playing field. It's different. I get it. I think all of us would like to see a little bit more of a commitment from players, and you always want your players to want to be where you're is, whether it's pro sports or college sports. You don't want to have to learn a new team every year until they make these guys employees, which they're determined not to. I just don't know what the solution is on that. That's the solution. Make them employees, sign them for a couple of years, that type of stuff. There'll still be headaches because of the unique nature of college. Can you make a kid go to college? Can you, what if you don't want somebody or things like that? So I understand some of that. I also look to the positives of it. Let's take college basketball. It's going right now. This sport used to be run by the quote-unquote blue bloods, right? It was the same kind of teams. They had all the advantages. That was an era when Nike and Adidas chose where the players go. Now the players choose where they want to go. Take a look at the top 20. You're not seeing a whole lot of blue bloods left. All of a sudden, you're seeing new teams be good. And I have no problem with I like that. Auburn, Tennessee, Alabama, these programs are thriving. Iowa State, Houston, things like that. It's not were you good in 1957? Were you good in 1978 anymore? Because 2 shoe companies are deciding where to go. So some of it can be unnerving and weird and unusual and not great, but there's also some advantages to it where you say, hey, any school can get pretty good in this sport. Football's a little tougher because but you see some rising of teams that you weren't getting 5 years ago when we'd go into a season with 3, maybe 4 teams that could win the national title. So I try to take the good with the bad, but I certainly appreciate fans' discomfort with some of it.
A sobering reaction from Dan Wetzel. Always great to hear from you, Dan. Thank you very much. So as we're talking with Dan, the meeting is ending in New Orleans, and this is Heather Dinich, who will join us in a few minutes. Sankey and Petiti both said they are in favor of changing the seeding for this season. They would like to see straight seeding that mirrors the committee ranking while guaranteeing spots for the 5 champs. Heather asked both commissioners if they could tell us what their leagues would like to see the CFP look like in 26 and beyond. No, Sankey said, I think that's something we owe our colleagues first. And I think I've been consistent in that observation for us. Well, what does he mean by that? Well, the commissioners of the Big 12 and the ACC are against what's happening in New Orleans. There's a meeting next week, so that's why the commissioner is holding comment for that until then. Chris Jans, big win last night in Starkville, will join us in about an hour, and Heather Dinich in about 90 minutes, 2.5 hours, I should say, with her interpretation of what we heard and didn't hear today in New Orleans. And your phone calls are straight around the corner.
You're listening to the Paul Finebaum Show podcast.
We are back, and let's check in, first time in a while, with Andre up next. Hello, Andre.
I listen to you all the time, Coach. I listen to you all the time. Listen, Dan Welker sounds like a jilted bride left at the altar.
I like that.
Listen, if the ACC or the Big 12 had a chance to cut the legs out from under the SEC or the Big 10, what do you think they would do, Coach?
They would get the biggest saw they could find.
That's right. Now, the SEC is not in the business of doing what's best for college football. They're in the business of doing what's best for the Southeastern Conference. Now, like Rick Neuheiser says, the only place you're going to find fair is where they put a blue ribbon on a pig. There's nothing fair about this. But we're not in the business of being fair. Do you want to see the best team in the playoffs or the most deserving? I want to see the best teams, Coach. What do you say?
Yeah, that's all I want to see, and I don't want to see any more trash like we saw this year in the first and second round where you had undeserving schools get automatic bids.
And, oh, man, the crying they did and the whining, and then they got taken directly behind the woodshed. And you know, Coach, in the jungle, the first rule of the jungle is self-survival. And the SEC and the Big Ten are doing what's best for them. And that's just how this thing goes. Coach, now before I get off this phone with you, what kind of grade are you giving Kelly over there in Baton Rouge? What are you giving him, Coach?
Well, I wouldn't give him a high grade last year, but before the grade could even came in, he had such a great off season that I'm willing to give him a little bit more patience.
Well, yeah, I figure this year here is a make or break year, Coach, and that's just, this is big boy ball with big boy money and big boy repercussions. So, hey, Coach Finebaum, thanks for taking my call and have a good day.
Well, thank you. Yeah, Darwin said it best, survival of the fittest. And in college athletics, it's just like the jungle that Andre alluded to. It is survival. And this is no longer the old days when we all wore bow ties and helped each other to class. It's can you stay alive in the dog eat dog? You may not like it, and there are a lot of parts about it that I really don't like, but it's still a matter of meeting the payroll. Crazy as that sounds. Ben is up next in Atlanta. Hello, Ben.
Hey, Professor Paul, I appreciate you taking my call.
Thank you.
And I want to say I love your show, and I'm a long-time listener. But I have to call you out on something yesterday. I was listening on the local 680 The Fan radio yesterday, Cellini and Domino show, and you had some comments about Bobo, Coach Bobo, and you said that Coach Bobo was the most disappointing part of the Georgia season last year. And I just have to take exception to that, Paul. And I want to say, as far as I'm concerned, Bobo wouldn't even been on my list for disappointing things that happened to Georgia last year. Man, when you start a season losing two of your bruising running backs, two Robinson boys, we lost ETN for a good part of the season, which left us with a walk-on running back and a freshman running back who's going to be a superstar, but nevertheless, he was thrown into starting as a freshman. Then the next most disappointing thing was our two ex-receivers who were hopefully have given Georgia for the first time in a long time some great wide receivers. Man, neither of those guys even got on the field because of off-the-field issues. That was a big disappointment. Then our offensive line was in flux all season.
Well, if I could interrupt for a second, Ben, because I'm really not interested in reliving last year's season. Let me explain something to you. You're on a talk show. They ask you a question, and you try to give an answer that doesn't stop traffic on the interstate and put everybody to sleep. So I gave that answer, which I think is
Okay.
a little. What you said is correct, but ultimately, Bobo remains a big issue to me, and you can't quibble about injuries because everybody has injuries. You're a Georgia fan, so therefore you think your injuries are more important. But nowadays in college football, you better have depth, and Kirby Smart got caught last year, and that's not my problem.
Yeah, and that's not Bobo. That wasn't Bobo's problem.
Listen, I said what I did. I stand by it, and
Okay.
I think what I said about Kirby Smart being too loyal to Bobo is accurate. Whether it's the biggest issue according to you or all the 15 or 20 things you laid out, or you wake up, Randy. That's fair, but I didn't have time to read War and Peace on that show. I wanted to give a quick answer so I could move on with the rest of my day. Thank you for the call. Dave is up next in Atlantic City. Hello, Dave.
Yeah, yes, Mr. Paul. Big fan of the SEC. Big fan.
Wonderful.
Mr. Paul, before we get to the playoff reconfigurations, I think the conferences have to be reconfigured. All right? Let me give you an example.
Okay, eager to hear this.
It is my proposal that in our beloved SEC, we send Kentucky, Missouri, Vanderbilt, Texas, and Texas A&M sailing. Texas and Texas A&M should go back to the Big 12.
Listen, I have a quick fuse today, so I'm going to go ahead and stop you, Dave. Listen,
go ahead.
What we're dealing with is the present and the future, and we're not going back to that. So what's the point of even discussing it?
Well, the future is
the future is that Texas and Oklahoma are in the SEC. They're not going back to any other conference because they wanted out of those conferences because they were failing. So, I mean, your ideas are great, but we're not sitting around a campfire or a Ouija board. We're talking about the real world.
I understand, Mr. Paul, but we're going to rejuvenate those conferences.
Well, no, we're not going to rejuvenate those conferences, Dave.
Why can't we?
Because they're done. When you leave a conference, you're not going back.
So you're saying like the Big 12 and the ACC are done?
I am not saying they are done, but they are lesser figures today. And I'm sorry, I've got friends in both, but it is not my job to make sure that they are on the same level as the SEC and the Big Ten. And
I understand.
And what you're suggesting is foolish.
Well, I'm trying to protect two things.
What are they?
Geographical rationality and classic rivalries.
Well, those are gone. Geographical rivalries are gone because, and by the way, what the SEC did is tame compared to what the Big Ten did. The Big Ten goes from New Jersey to the West Coast.
I agree with you completely.
But tell me this. I don't know if you're in business or not, but tell me how we're going to go back to that.
Well, I propose a new conference.
Okay. Well, listen. I mean, Randy, what are we in some liberal arts school talking theories right now, or are we in the real world on a talk show?
No. I'm a semi-retired lawyer.
Well, you know what, Dave? You need to go back to work. I should have known.
Let me give you my
Only a lawyer would come up with some half-baked, convoluted theory that has no chance of working.
My new conference members. Ready?
What's that?
Army, Boston College,
Okay.
Cincinnati, Navy, Notre Dame, Pittsburgh, Penn State, Rutgers, Syracuse, and West Virginia. I'm done.
You are done.
Yes, sir.
You're held in contempt of court.
I'm
Dave.
sorry.
I am putting you in the slammer. Okay.
I'll post bond immediately,
No,
sir.
you're,
Have a great day.
no bond. Case dismissed. We're back. Man, I tell you what. We got no patience today for retired lawyers. We are coming right back, or judges for that matter.
You're listening to the Paul Finebaum Show podcast.
And we're back. We're going to try to be calmer. How about this from Dellinger? SEC ADs and coaches. The coaches were there as well. That is news. Discussed the potential of moving to 9 games. Sankey says they have not made a decision, but it sounds like several people in the room at first against 9 games are rethinking. That's very positive. Sankey, according to Heather, says there's a lot of interest in 9 games. So 9 games it is. Okay. I want to say one thing about our last couple of callers. I am normally, I think, pretty patient. And I don't mind anybody having an idea or a suggestion, but when there's zero chance of it ever happening, I try to, for the good of the audience, get in the middle of it. And what that guy was suggesting, the lawyer, was so far-fetched that I thought it was a waste of time to continue. Call me whatever you want, but I have to be the judge sometimes because we don't have any good judges calling in the show, do we? No. Chris is up next.
Good afternoon, Mr. Finebaum.
Judge?
The fellow that just called, can you hear me?
Correct.
Yeah. Hang on, I'm trying to get this on the right speaker.
You sound great.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you, Chris.
The fellow just called. I'm sure he went to law school, but you didn't do enough in holding him in contempt. I think you should fine him, put him on probation, and he's barred from your courtroom for at least 6 months.
Okay.
Here's
Judge,
the reason.
do you have jurisdiction over that? I'm going to let you make the ruling.
Well, I'll give myself jurisdiction.
Okay.
But it's also not
going to have Jeff
happen.
from Columbus arrested while we're at it.
I'm all for that. It's not going to happen. They're not going to realign the conferences. So what do you do going forward? There's no need to dream about what you think should happen in your little playpen. Now, my concern with this 4 automatic bids for just 2 of the 4 remaining bigger conferences is it's too much. Maybe and hopefully this is a negotiating position and come back to maybe 3 each. But automatic bids creates a problem. And that
Correct.
problem is what if Iowa State, Texas Tech, and Baylor hit on a good year? Then you've got one open bid only that you could do anything with. So it may be that there'll be many years you'll have 4-4, 2-2-1, but this is you're painting yourself into a corner. So I think it's a really bad idea.
Judge, that's a really good idea because I mean it's hard to imagine, but what if the Big Ten has one good team, SEC has one good team, and then everybody else has a couple of losses? Then you're doing exactly what we just got through criticizing the former committee doing, and that was rewarding mediocrity.
Right, and like a couple years ago, Cincinnati made the Final Four, right?
They sure did.
The 4-team. Well, they earned that. They beat Notre Dame. They won all their games, and now you could argue, well, Alabama or Georgia or Texas or somebody was better, but they did the work. So this is like the Russians with the Ukrainians. You better be careful if you go too far, because when you go too far, it'll blow up on you in a year or 2 or 5 years. So those are my thoughts. But you hold those lawyers that call in with dumb ideas are not the best ideas. No disrespect to Dave. It's just not going to
Well,
work.
Judge,
You have to
I
have a
don't mind
practical
somebody
outcome.
offering a theory, like if this happened or that happened. But when you say we need to go back to, it's a non-starter.
It's not going to. Yeah, you're wasting. Why are we talking about that? You're wasting your time, and you've got. I don't know how many people are watching the show. 100, 200, 200,000, 300,000. I don't know how many. But you're wasting all their time.
Most important, they're wasting your time and my time and Randy's time. Let's move on. I mean, I want to give the audience, let you in on a secret. While the lawyer from New Jersey was going off, I looked over at Randy. He had fallen asleep. I thought that was the moment that I had to interrupt. I'll throw myself on the mercy of the court if you feel like I was out of line. Somebody called me rude and shameful. I've listened to more things. I mean, we've heard every. Well, I don't want to bring personal people into it, but we've heard a lot on this show. Rick is up next in Daytona Beach.
Oh, thank goodness. Look, I hope you don't get bored with my little theory here or get...
I feel good about it.
I'm out of line. Here, I thought about this. How about the NIL, when the kid comes in the fall, let's sit down with his representative. Let's negotiate. How much money are we going to pay you? Okay?
Okay.
All right, let's sign a contract. All right, now, let's sign a 2-year contract. Let's say after the first year, he decides he wants to go somewhere else. Okay, then we got a buyout. How much we going to buy it? Coaches have it. If you want to go to another school, then you got to do a buyout. Buy them out. You got to buy out. Now, here's the other thing. Let's say kid's not going to class. Let's say he's late for practice. Fine him. You got $1,000 fine. You got $10,000, just like you do in professional sports. I mean, to me that would solve it. I know that's way too logical, but let's negotiate this thing. It's a contract. You want to be an adult? Let's just be a contract. Just like coaches, just like administrators, you got a contract. You break that contract, you're gonna pay for it. Is that completely crazy or what?
No, that's actually a really good idea. I'm glad I swallowed my whistle there as you were talking.
Hey, Paul.
Well done, Rick.
Called in, can I tell you one thing before we hang up?
Yes,
you
may.
The last time I called in, some caller had called in about Pete Maravich, why he went, all this stuff about Pete Maravich, and I called it because I knew Pete Maravich. I used to work with him at camp.
Oh, really?
He went to LSU. I told her that, yeah, but he was scheduled to go to NC State because his father was a coach.
Right.
So I corrected him. He couldn't make the 700 on the SAT. That's why he went to LSU. SEC did not have a SAT requirement. ACC did. So just a little bit of knowledge.
Well, you know what? NC State was able to recover. Would he have been on the same team with David Thompson, or was that later?
No, he's older. He's older.
Can you? By the way, can you imagine that team with Maravich and David Thompson?
Be pretty nice. It'd be pretty nice. But
did
David
that
wouldn't
NC
have got
State
as much
team?
plans.
That NC State team didn't win the national, or did they?
Yes, they did.
They did win the title. Okay.
They beat UCLA.
Okay, that's the one that ended UCLA's long run, right?
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly.
That was in 74, maybe? 73. Yeah, that was in 74.
No,
74.
It was before. Yeah, it was 74.
It was 74 because UCLA, because Wooden's last championship was 75, and I know they won it in 73. Hey, thank you, Rick. That's a really good call. That's an interesting. I think that was a fascinating discussion there. Let's continue with more phone calls here. Pete in Tallahassee. Hello, Pete.
Hey, Paul. I just wanted to ask you something, or make a comment. You keep criticizing Indiana for their sorry schedule, but under your new proposal, Indiana's probably going to have an automatic bid every year to get back into the playoff. There was only 5 teams in the Big Ten this past year, 24, that had won more than 8 ball games.
You're right.
Indiana happened to be one of them. So you could, if this is something that's fixed, you could end up with some Big Ten teams. Hopefully not the SEC, but maybe, you don't know, that are 8 wins or 7 wins or something like that.
I am not wild about the automatic qualifiers,
Yeah,
But I really, I think
there
it's
ought to be some flexibility.
Yeah, no, it solves some of the problems, but it really doesn't.
Yeah.
It presents even more.
But let me tell you this too. You
Okay.
criticize Indiana for paying the powerful Charlotte football team.
Right.
Yet, if you look at Georgia's schedule for this coming year, they play Charlotte, they play Austin Peay, and then the powerhouse Marshall. And you look at Texas, they're going to play San Jose State, University of Texas El Paso, Sam Houston. Now, Alabama's doing a little.
You conveniently left out their first game, which is at Ohio State.
Oh, I know, but you still got those other three,
Well,
Paul.
no, I don't mind you playing three dogs, but my argument with Indiana was they didn't play anyone. So I mean, I have no problem.
But they didn't select their schedule. Maybe some group of guys like you need to provide a schedule for all these people.
Well, I would be happy to if you allow me, Pete. I'll give Indiana a schedule, and my schedule to them was try Georgia's schedule last year with Clemson and road trips at Ole Miss and Alabama in Texas, and they wouldn't have made the playoffs. We'll take a short break. They wouldn't have had a winning record. We'll take a short break, and we're coming right back.
You're listening to the Paul Finebaum Show podcast.
And welcome back, and let's go to the Zoom. Chris is up next.
Hey, let me wake up, Paul. Let me wake up, Paul. Because them lawyers and them judges, they put me to sleep, Paul. This not the end you want, man. This is Six Flags over Paul Finebaum. And Paul Finebaum, I don't care anything about the ACC, but I don't like you saying that that conference is dead. Because you have been having a team for the last 15, 16 years in that conference, being able to win that championship game, probably out of 11 of them. So you can't say we dead. You can say that all the dead weight over there is dead, but not Clemson. So you got to separate us.
Well, I didn't say the ACC is dead. I just said it's diminished.
Nah, you can't say diminished because that Paul's still there. Big brother's still there, and we still holding down the fort.
Hey, Chris, when was the last time Clemson played for a title?
Last time Clemson played for a title is the last time we buried that helmet, 44-16. That's the last time we played.
You actually, I believe you played the next year against LSU and got blown out.
Paul, yeah, I try to block that bad memory out there. You're 100% right. But the thing is, we've been back there since Bama have.
You've done what?
We've been back to the playoffs since Bama have.
No, you haven't. Well, that's true, by the way. You haven't won since Bama's won, but you have been there more recently than Bama.
And then the same thing is going to happen to Georgia, Paul. You said something that you just left your break. You said something I want to get into, and I told it to you 4 years ago. What's going to happen when the SEC eat each other up and everybody finishes 8-4? Well, they answer the question. They're going to put them in the playoffs anyway.
You're right. Well, I think part of the reason for the automatic qualifier from an SEC standpoint is that they are finally, and I mean finally, going to 9 conference games. So they're looking for a little bit of protection, having played 9 games in the toughest league in America.
South Carolina just got 10. Because we're the second best team in the SEC. South Carolina just got 10.
Chris, I really like you. I don't want to have to punk you every single day by saying you were 0-3 in the SEC last year. It's no fun anymore.
No, Paul, you just don't like it, Paul. And I'm telling you, you can honestly look at me face to face and we can drop it after the day. You don't think that Clemson is equal to an SEC program. True or false?
I think Clemson is an SEC program. I completely agree.
Send the invitation. Get on the phone with Greg Sankey. Send the invitation.
Well, here's the problem, though. You did not help yourself by suing your current league. The SEC does not look kindly on that.
Hey, well,
and you have something else going against you. You're not the State University of South Carolina.
See, Paul, I know you was gonna get it out of me sooner or later. Let me tell you something about South Carolina. South Carolina don't run nothing. They renting it. They might have got residents.
They have beaten you.
Don't run nothing.
How many years in a row now? In Clemson, they've beaten you the last 2 times on your home turf.
We beat them 7 times in a row before that, Paul.
Well,
and we beat them at home last year.
I can't remember back that far.
Don't worry about it, Paul. So let me ask you this: will a national title do it. If we get a national title this year, they're gonna send an invitation.
The answer remains no. And by the way, I think Clemson is a legitimate contender for the national championship.
Hey, I appreciate it. Much respect.
Okay.
Have a blessed evening, Paul.
You got it. We're finding some common ground with that guy. We had more Clemson fans on this show already today than SEC fans. What's going on here? Let's check in with Charles up next in Florida. Hello, Charles.
Hey, Mr. Finebaum, how are you today?
We are doing great.
That's good. I wanted to go back to some of the things that Dan said earlier in the show.
Okay.
I still wonder why they can't go to a one-time portal each year and wait until football season is over, wait until after the national championship to where the players can have 100% of their mind on football and not where they want to go or how much money they want to make. Have the portal after football ends and let the players and the coaches have time to go into the portal and set their teams, but at least they know what
Charles, that is a good
season.
suggestion. Originally, everybody wanted to move the national signing date into December. They wanted to move the portal up so they could get all the players into the bowl preparation. But I think it boomeranged on them. You're right.
Yes, sir. And too, I wonder when the players are going to stick to their signature, and if they sign a contract stating, I'm going to this college.
Yeah. Well, my understanding of contract law is that you do have to abide by that. The problem, these are all short-term deals. Well, some good points. We'll take a break.